You're listening to Mind Over Me, the mental wellness podcast with me, Scott Carter. I am a licensed therapist. Here at Mind Over Me, I offer an unconventional approach to therapy and mental health in general. The therapy system is misguided and broken. So many people are turning to mental health professionals for help, and they're just not finding it. It's my goal to bring some unconventional means, unconventional views, and maybe some unconventional techniques to helping people find mental wellness. Instead of being dependent on a system or a medication or a professional for mental wellness or mental stability, my goal is to always empower and help people by teaching them how to help themselves. This podcast is about self-efficacy, self-determination, and self-empowerment. Every person needs to find a better connection with themselves. Whether you realize it or not, you are the answer to your problems. You just need better information, and I hope to give it to you. So, thank you for being here. Let's dive in. Alrighty, welcome back, fellow seekers, fellow travelers. Once again, this is Mind Over Me. So glad you're here. So glad you're listening. Hope you're doing well. If you're not doing well, I hope you're remembering, as I am. Okay, this applies to me too. Remembering to turn your struggles into lessons and learning to turn your struggles into strengths. Again, this is something that I'm working on as well. I've been putting a lot of thought. I've been investing a lot of thought lately into this notion that there is a difference between what I'm going to call it adult psychology versus child thinking versus adult thinking, adult attitudes versus child attitudes, right? And there just doesn't seem to be enough adults around these days. And so whenever it comes to something like this, I always do my best to be sure that I'm self-reflecting, as I think you should be too. Like if you're noticing something like you're like, oh boy, there sure is a lack of responsibility with people these days. The first thing that we should be doing in every single one of those situations is checking in with ourselves first, right? Like if I'm going to hold other people to a certain standard, I need to hold myself to that standard first. This should be the basis of all adult thinking, adult attitudes, right? This is, to me, should be the foundational piece of the difference between adult ways of thinking, adult attitudes versus childish ones. So first and foremost, check in with yourself. So just to mention the topic today, because it's a tough one, but that's kind of my goal. My goal is to try and approach and tackle difficult topics. I don't claim that any of my perspectives, viewpoints, opinions on things are 100% objective truth, but because we're not having enough of these conversations, that's all I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to move the conversation forward so that we can bring our heads together, bring our ideas together to create better ideas. So there's just not enough of that going around. There's not enough of the critical thinking and intellectualization process going around these days. I am a very firm believer that we are living through the new intellectual dark ages. There's not nearly enough thinking and growing and building and collaborating and gaining knowledge, right, and learning, and just a whole lot of consuming media and forming half-baked opinions. A lot of times it'd be nice if those opinions were even half-baked, but I don't really think most of the time they're even half-baked. I think they're less than that baked. But difficult, challenging topic that I'm going to try and tackle today, and that is the war on the masculine and the war on the feminine. But I want to tie this topic back to our individuality, our individual journeys. I want to tie this topic back to our personal growth, our personal journey, why it matters, why it's important, why you should be having this discussion, how it applies to each of us, etc. And, because there are a lot of conflicting, that's a good way to put it. There's a lot of conflicting notions, ideas, opinions are going on out there about both masculinity and femininity. The war on masculinity is a very, very overt one. It's full frontal assault. It's loud. It's right in our faces. The war on femininity is covert. It's manipulative. It's insidious. It's hidden. It's between the lines. But I'm going to talk about some of the traits of the masculine and some of the traits of the feminine and how they apply to each of us. Kind of later on in this program. Again, these are difficult topics. I'm doing my best out here. What I've found is that like you can't talk about the sexes. You can't talk about men and women and the masculine and the feminine without somebody deciding that they've been offended somehow. There's so much of that going around, in fact, that the conversations have been shut down almost entirely around these topics. And that's a bad thing. I stand firmly on that. When conversations stop happening about anything, it's bad. And I don't support anyone who goes around just trying to shut down honest questioning, honest conversations, honest discussion about certain topics. I know you're already thinking like, man, this sounds like a good time. This sounds like fun. Yeah, let's hope so. I actually love this topic of the masculine and the feminine. I love having open, honest discussions about people or with people about this particular topic, especially people who are really into the theories and the beliefs about the masculine versus the feminine, people who believe in the divine masculine, people who believe in the divine feminine. I always just really absolutely enjoy the shit out of those conversations. They just resonate very, very deeply with me. And it's unfortunate that we have gotten so far removed from this crucial and essential part of our identities. And it would be ideal if I had a female associate here with me to have this discussion with me. I'm honestly looking for someone who's really into this topic, the divine masculine and feminine, and how they interplay with each other. And looking for someone that maybe I can have on the podcast, be as a guest, someone who can that can kind of banter with me a little bit on this topic, and that we can have a positive back and forth. And so hopefully one day that will happen. That's honestly one of my goals. I just really, really, really enjoy this topic, especially when I'm having a good discussion with someone who is in their feminine. Anyway, so we are going to dive into that in this program. Hopefully that sounds fun. Hopefully it will be. As always, after we get into the main topic of the show, we're going to do some shadow work journal prompts having to do with the masculine and the feminine. Shadow work is really, really important stuff to me. It was founded by Carl Gustav Jung. I actually learned recently, because I've had a pretty high opinion of Carl Jung, but I have not been a student so much of his life and his personal dealings as so much as his philosophy and his contributions to psychotherapy. I was surprised recently to learn that there are groups of psychologists that see him as a bad guy, that he made some bad decisions, and that he made bad decisions, he did some wrong things, and that he's just not a good human being. Personally, I prefer not to entertain discussions about what it means to be a good person versus a bad person. That's not entirely true, but I think things get extremely convoluted. I think one of the things that's kind of surprised and sort of disappointed me is to see psychologists being so condemning and so judgmental. One guy on X, right? He's always bagging on Carl, and he's always championing Freud. If you know much about Freud, I think Freud was a quack. I think Freud's theory on development is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Cocaine-driven fever dream, more like it. I mean, literally. But anyways, this gentleman, not going to name names, says that he's worked with chronically drug-addicted veterans. Veterans are a very, very troubled bunch because of the PTSD. They struggle with addictions. The PTSD really can be really nasty in a lot of them, and it really destroys their lives. They're very raw in their emotions. They tend to wear their pain on their sleeves. Sometimes they act out in certain ways because of the PTSD, and frankly, a lot of them feel like the military did them dirty. I don't disagree with them, whatever. But anyways, this certain psychologist is a huge advocate for these guys, which is great. I am too. My heart goes out to them. I actually love the recovery crowd. They're one of my favorite populations. They're amazing. They're incredible people with incredible stories of resilience. But on the same token, this dude is really down on Carl Jung, and I'm like, dude, people are human. Humans gonna human, man. Humans gonna human. But this is just another reason for me personally and professionally as to why I have such a low opinion of mental health professionals. They're just such incredible hypocrites. I don't understand how you can be so empathetic and so dialed into the human struggle, because it's a human struggle, and it's very important one. It's a very deep one. It's a very rich one. And it's very confusing and yet profound. The human struggle is. I'm talking about existentialism right now. The existential struggle for human beings, man. It's powerful. It's important. It's how do I say this? I'm not saying that like when I say rich, I just mean that it's deep. Right? There's just a lot to it. So yeah, sorry, it gets a little old for me with these mental health professionals. I interact with far too many of them, and I've just become acutely aware of what massive hypocrites most of them are. But it bugs me, right? I'm a person, right? I'm a human being as well, and it bugs me, and I guess it shouldn't. I need to do better. I'm always trying to do better. That's the truth. But it bugs me that you have this person who's like so empathetic with vets and drug addicts that were chronically addicted, chronically homeless, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and then so deeply down on someone who's contributed a lot to psychology and specifically psychotherapy. There's a type of old school psychotherapy called psychoanalytic, and Carl Jung is the greatest contributor to that. He's the one that helped make psychoanalytic therapy and theory extremely rich and powerful and a positive experience. But all that's to say, if you're new here, during the episode, I've been doing it at the end. Start doing it at the end. We're going to do some shadow work journal prompts to help you kind of explore this on your own and kind of dig deep and get in there to your deep psyche, core psyche, so that you can kind of rewire yourself. Sometimes during these episodes, I like to share what I'm personally working on. I think it's extremely important for therapists to do their own therapy, to do their own work. And it's a little bit of a vulnerable thing for me to kind of share what I'm doing, but what I'm working on, but I need to be more vulnerable. So that's another thing that I'm working on. But the biggest thing that has been on my mind lately is the lack of discipline. I've had a lack of discipline in my life. For me, it's so easy to fall into this state of being undisciplined and just sort of coast along. And I hate this word, but I don't have a better one. Kind of get lazy about some things. And then usually my tension will build up and it'll kind of boil over and I'll get really frustrated with myself and try to recommit to just being more disciplined. So this is one of the things I'm working on, is because it's really important to dig in and understand your cycles. And this is currently one that I found myself repeating over and over again, is the discipline problem. I look back at my father, the man who sired me, you're talking about a man who had no discipline, total lack of discipline. My father had zero discipline, none. My dad was actually a very childish man, very childish person. And he had no discipline. And so, what I'm doing right now is, dedicating myself to certain things and basically setting a timer that I'm going to do this thing and I'm not going to divert my attention for the duration of the time until the timer goes off. And that's kind of my effort right now. This is how because discipline is something that you earn. It's something that you build, and it's something that you grow. I also thought it would be worth mentioning. I just saw this over on X, or the Bird app, whatever we're calling it. I make TikTok videos, so They don't want you saying other platforms. They don't want you mentioning X. They don't want you mentioning Instagram. But I just saw this over on X and I thought it was interesting. I really wanted to mention it because I've been saying the same thing for a couple of years now. I've been noticing an alarming trend, a quite alarming trend. So actually, this was reported on a segment of Bill Maher. Not a big fan of Bill Maher, but I mean, I don't dislike him. I think he has smart things to say sometimes. I think he has good things to say sometimes. He reports in a study, take it or leave it. Research can be dubious. I actually believe it. I believe it's probably accurate, and I'll explain why. But he reported that 72% of Gen Z females stated that mental illness was an important part of their identity, or mental health challenges, I think is how they worded it. Mental health challenges were an important part of their identity. I've actually been noticing this for a long time. For several years, I've been talking about it for a while because I see it in teenage girls. I work with teenagers, including teen girls, and unfortunately, I have seen this trend with teen girls where they because the formation of our identity, that's something that I talk about all the time. Formation of our identity is extremely important. There's not enough healthy identity going around these days, which also ties back to the topic of this show. But healthy identity must form during those adolescent teenage years. And I've seen more and more young girls who are attaching their identity to a mental health challenge. I would like to say that I hope that this would go without saying. That doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? I like to think that this goes without saying. How's that? That this is a problem. It's not healthy to build your identity off a mental illness or a mental health challenge. This is extremely misguided. And this is honestly, to me, just kind of goes back to the lack of proper guidance and growth in our young people, that they're being raised too often. To me, this is just the result of kids being raised by social media. There, I said it. Rip the Band-Aid off. I'm telling you, people, social media is so bad for kids. We've got to take it away from them. It's horrible for them. It's horrible for their mental health. But what's interesting, I noticed, is that the opposite was true for Gen Z men. Like almost exactly the opposite. 73% of Gen Z men said that it was not a crucial or important part of their identity formation to have mental health challenges. So that's kind of interesting. Now, I have some theories about why this is. Maybe I'll break it down into more detail once we get into our topic, but that was fascinating. That was a fascinating little tidbit of information, extremely problematic. What I've found too, unfortunately, is that it's very, very difficult to give modern women any feedback. It's very difficult for modern women to take accountability. I know that doesn't apply to all of them. There are lots of them. There are amazing women. I know incredible women that I absolutely adore. They take accountability. They take responsibility for their emotions and their life and how they experience the world and all that. But there's not enough of it going around in general. But I find that it's more problematic these days with the female side of the aisle. I know the males have their problems and issues too. Believe me, I know. Don't come after me. I'm well aware of them. But anyways, just an interesting little tidbit there. Troubling little tidbit there. So, I mean, if you have kids, right, like maybe, keep this in mind as you're kind of bringing them up and raising them. Like, what kind of attitudes do you want them to have about themselves? Mental illnesses and mental health challenges are not a good place to plant the seeds of your identity, folks. That's honestly quite troubling and a little bit disturbing. And yet again, I'm not surprised. I've been seeing this happen for years. All right, let's get into this topic. Let's talk about the war on masculinity and the war on femininity. I struggle with that word, so we're probably just going to say the masculine and the feminine. That's easier for me. There's a war on the masculine and a war on the feminine. Now, a lot of people might disagree that there is a war on the feminine, because I think on the surface it looks like there is a full frontal assault on the masculine, and the masculine is constantly being demonized, villainized, and constantly beat down. There are groups such as the feminists who say that feminism is not about hating men. Why on earth would you think that? The answer, of course, is because you're constantly telling us how much you hate men. Men and boys hear the worst of the worst types of things on social media. Men are useless. Men are worthless. Men are unwanted. They're unneeded. We don't want them. We don't need them. They're useless. They're worthless. Abort your boys. Abort babies. I've even seen feminists say to give boys vasectomies so they can't have babies, so that they can't breed later in life. Of course, that's never going to happen. Still a terrible thing to say, but boys and men, they absorb this type of thing. So the war on masculinity is a full frontal assault. We hear all the time about toxic masculinity. That's kind of a whole other topic. I mean, I might as well touch on it here because, yeah, I've still yet to get a really good definition of what toxic masculinity is or is not. I'm a firm believer that there's not a lot of men around, that there's boys in adult grown bodies. That's not a dig on them, but there used to be a formal ritual. There used to be formal rituals in cultures and in different indigenous tribes, for example, where boys were deliberately put through a process to help them become men so that they would be more masculine. And we have nothing like that any longer. So boys are constantly being told that their masculinity is toxic, that they're inherently bad and evil simply because of how they were born. They contribute a lot to keeping society running and are told that they do nothing and that they are worthless anyways. So yeah, it's a full-on frontal assault on masculinity. It's again, it's very overt, it's very obvious. We can all see it. The ones who do it also gaslight us and tell us that they don't do it when we sit there and watch them. There's also, I kind of realized this recently because on the surface, it looks as though men are being elevated. I'm sorry, that women are being elevated while men are being degraded, right? Men are just sort of being buried into the ground of being bad. They're the villains. Every problem in the world is their fault. I hear these things all the time. But the war on femininity is the war on the feminine. I don't know why I started with that word. The war on the feminine is a lot more covert. It's a lot more insidious. It's a lot more manipulative. It's dressed up to look like support and love and empowerment for women, when in fact it's glamorizing mental illness. Okay, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to mention that statistic that I just mentioned a few minutes ago. The 72% of Gen Z women who see mental health struggles as a crucial part of their identity. Mental illness is elevated, celebrated, glamorized. They're encouraged to be selfish. They're encouraged to be neurotic. They're encouraged to use people, to be just nasty people, to be selfish people. It's elevated, it's celebrated. Again, it's glamorized. Selfish, destructive women are called queens, right? Yes, queen. And there's a lot of this stuff online where they're encouraged to step on whomever they want to step on, or use or exploit whoever they want to exploit, to get whatever they want. I believe that girls are confronted with a lot of ideals that are presented as positive and good, and in fact are bad. So, right, good values are painted as bad, and bad values are painted as good. They're encouraged to seek masculine things. They're encouraged to pursue masculine things and to increase their masculine traits, and it's painted and portrayed as empowerment. So again, we're supposed to believe that when men have masculine traits, it's because how evil and bad and horrible they are. But when women do the same thing, it's because of how great they are. So in men, the masculine traits are highly, highly, highly discouraged and frowned upon. And the same thing is with the feminine, with women. Feminine traits are also demonized, villainized, and discouraged. Women are led to believe that they are true women when they're acting more masculine or behaving more masculine or pursuing more masculine things. Women are often villainized and demonized when they pursue feminine things, especially overtly feminine things. It's often portrayed as weak, right? I'm talking about this. I'm just going to call it the social rot mob. That's what I'm kind of just sort of resorting to calling it. There's just this undercurrent subculture in our society that has adopted a lot of junk values. They're very aggressive with those values. They demand that the rest of us agree to them and conform to their values, even though it's quite clearly a complete disaster. So I just call that the social rot mob. And what they've done is they've created a convolution and a confusion around masculine traits, feminine traits. There's a lot of, oh, I'm angry and I'm super offended because you call this particular trait feminine or you call that trait masculine, which is not to say that anybody and everybody can't demonstrate, show, or exemplify those traits. But there are certain traits that are inherently masculine, and there are certain traits that are inherently feminine. And all of those traits are considered good traits. There are strengths the feminine has that the masculine does not, and vice versa. And yes, because it is a cruel, harsh world, it appears as though those who have power are the ones who win. And so this is a misguided masculine trait to dominate and to take and to control in order to quote unquote win. So I fundamentally disagree that money and power just automatically means that you're winning in life. Believe me, I've known many people who were wealthy, successful, lonely, alcoholics, who hated their life, right? Like, that's, to me, not being successful. That's not winning in life. But again, the social rot mob wants us to see losing as winning and winning as losing. I also couldn't help but notice that the social rot mob has really, really, really taken to attacking anything that is seen as good or positive or virtuous, even if those values in other people have zero impact on their lives. I recently had a TikTok video that gained some traction. It's an old one, but a while back, there were these two kids. Four boys. I think it was 4 boys on TikTok. They were building an outside fort. It didn't show the kids' faces. They had full support of their parents. They had adults there. They had adult supervision. And these kids are just building a fort in the woods. That's it. They're just building a fort out in the woods. But they had so many people reporting their account and getting them removed from TikTok. I just frankly wasn't surprised whatsoever, because there is an overt attack on anything and everything good. Like, you could have a man and a woman who are deeply, deeply in love, and if they show that love overtly or outside or on social media, people are going to viciously attack them. And so a lot of our masculine and feminine roles have gotten confused and convoluted, and too many people they're just afraid to speak up. And but I believe things are changing, and I believe that things have kind of ran their course, and it's time to speak up and speak our minds and champion the real virtues and the real values. As a side note, too, I did an episode on why is love dead, what happened to relationships, and all that. And one of the reasons why love is dead is just the loss and the confusion between the masculine and the feminine, and the masculine and feminine roles. So what I'd like to do now is rattle off a list of qualities and traits that are inherently feminine and masculine. We're going to start with the feminine because, ladies, I want to send some love your way. I love you a lot. I'm hard on you because I love you, because I am hard. I am hard on ladies. I want to see them do better, honestly. If I didn't love them, I wouldn't challenge them to be better. But I'm going to go through a list of inherently feminine qualities and then inherently masculine. Again, we're going to start with the ladies. Okay, so once again, these are traits when you've seen a maturation or like a growth where women are embracing these inherently positive qualities, inherently positive qualities associated with the feminine that come a lot more naturally just by sheer nature of being aligned with the feminine. And that's not to say that someone who is born male cannot exhibit or exemplify these traits in a very positive way, and vice versa. We all have these traits. It's neither good nor bad, right nor wrong. Chill out. Just saying. I know that men will have these traits, will have feminine traits, and women will have masculine traits. Okay, disclaimer. Now that we've had disclaimers, okay, here goes. Number one, intuition and inner knowing. Okay, trusting instincts, tuning into what isn't obvious, and valuing wisdom. So I've often said that I think the defining trait of the divine feminine is wisdom. That wisdom is just comes much more naturally to the feminine. They are naturally better at just kind of seeing between the lines and understanding the nuances, even from early ages. So intuition and inner knowing is part of that wisdom. Number two, receptivity. Okay, being receptive. Okay, that's not in the sense of being passive, but in being open, right? So like a lot of people will seek a female therapist because there seems to be a natural ability to receive and being receptive and open in general than with men, right? There can be naturally very good at receiving love, ideas, help, and inspiration. Okay. Number three, nurturing and compassion. Says the impulse to care for others. I have a list here. I'm just reading the list. I have notes. The impulse to care for others, create safety, and show empathy, even when the world is on fire. Number four, I love this one. This one's really great. This is what I love about the feminine. One of the things I love about the feminine, creativity and birth. This doesn't just mean babies. It's art, ideas, movements, possibilities. Yeah. So women, the feminine is just seems to have a desire that they want to grow the plants and plant the garden and decorate and put a woman's touch on things and make things beautiful and create new ideas and innovate and try new things and explore and adventure. I love that about them. Excuse me. Number five, flow and adaptability. Instead of rigid structure, it's about moving with cycles and seasons and change. Water more than steel, or like wind instead of a mountain. Okay, the masculine tends to be more of a mountain, and the feminine tends to be more of a wind or a storm. Again, neither good nor bad, right nor wrong, just is. Okay. Let's see. Number six. We're gonna see if we can rip right through these. Connection and relational focus. Okay, valuing community, intimacy, interconnectedness rather than rugged individualism. I love that about the feminine too, because the masculine can overdo it on just being solo, solitude, hermit, etc. And women can be great at just creating that. The feminine is great at just creating that connection and creating community. Number seven, sensuality and embodiment. Being grounded in the body, valuing pleasure, presence, and fully experiencing life. Totally. Love that. Number eight, healing and wholeness. The drive to restore balance, mend what's broken, and weave together what's been fragmented. Number nine, patience and stillness. Being able to hold space, being able to listen, not needing everything right this second. And just being able to be present, basically. And finally, number 10. There's probably other ones, but we're just going to do 10. Number 10. This one is so true. I see this in women so much. Mystery and the unseen. If you've ever noticed, like, women are just naturally drawn to witchcraft, right? And tarot, things like tarot and witchcraft, astrology, stuff like that. Where it's like discovering mysteries and the nuances and the hidden and the unseen. Ladies, I know you've got your essential oils, okay? AKA potions. Okay. That's to me the witch, like, remember a year or two ago, there was a thing going around where it was like, men think about the Roman Empire a lot, and women thought that was crazy. And my rebuttal was, yeah, well, she thinks that's crazy. Ask her how much she thinks about witchcraft. Men think about the Roman Empire, and women think about witchcraft. Okay, so that's a feminine. Those are the traits of the divine feminine. Let's do the masculine. 10 traits of the divine masculine. I'm going to go slightly out of order from the list that I have. I'm going to start with what I believe is the defining trait of the masculine, okay? And it's strength. To me, the defining trait of the masculine is strength. And along with this, protection, okay? And it's not just physical strength. It's emotional resilience, standing firm, safeguarding what matters. Men are able to take on the storms of life. They are so much more emotionally durable, like under stress. They deal with stress so much better as a whole than the feminine. They just take the storms of life like head on, and they don't break down quite as easily. Okay, so strength for me is wisdom. For the feminine is the defining trait. For the masculine, it's strength. Number 2, direction and purpose. Having a clarity of vision, knowing where you're going, and moving toward it without dithering further in someday land. Okay. Number 3, structure and order, building frameworks, setting boundaries. Yes. Creating the scaffolding so things don't collapse into chaos. I've noticed that the feminine struggles with boundaries, especially like from a parenting perspective, and the masculine dads generally thrive in this area with less effort. Again, I know there are exceptions to the rules. Don't come at me. Okay. That was number 3. This number, sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Action and decisiveness. Taking initiative instead of waiting for permission, making choices, moving forward. Number 6, I mentioned this one earlier for me, discipline and consistency. This is where I struggle. Following through, doing the work, even when it's boring, and not treating self-control like it's a prison sentence. Yep. Okay. I feel attacked. Number 7, logic and reason. Clear thinking, problem solving, cutting through noise with analysis instead of being ruled by feelings. Okay. Yeah, men tend to be problem solvers, right? Especially in relationships, or if she's emotional and he'll try to tell her how to fix it, try to solve the problem. She feels frustrated by that. That's not what she wants. She doesn't want you to solve it, but that's what the masculine does. The masculine is like, I have a problem. How do I solve it? As a side note, this particular trait is partially what I believe makes me an effective therapist. When I see people that have issues, I'm always thinking, okay, how do we help them clear this issue up? How do we solve it? Okay. And so I'm usually almost always giving people homework and a path or a direction on how to take it on and deal with it. Number 8, courage and taking risks. Totally. This is a big one for the masculine. The masculine really thrives when it comes to facing fears, embracing challenges, and stepping into the unknown when it counts. I've noticed that women, or the feminine, tends to follow in our footsteps. Like, they'll jump out of the airplane when we jump out of the airplane, right? They wait for us to do it first. Or like, this is one of my favorite examples too, is like, since it's October now, going to like haunted houses, the ones you pay a lot of money to go through. So have people jump out and scare you. Like, you take your girlfriend, she's always going to use you as a human shield, right? You're the courageous one. You're the brave one. Number 9, integrity and honor. Yeah. Those are fancy warrior terms. Keeping your word, living in alignment with values, not being the sort of person who folds at the very first whiff of pressure. Wait, sorry. I don't think I have these numbered correctly. The next one, whatever. Leadership and guidance. Okay. The masculine generally is better at leading, is showing leadership. My favorite book on masculinity is called King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. When it comes to leadership, we're talking about the king archetype. Leadership and guidance, setting the tone, holding space for others to grow. And finally, as I'm trying to wrap this up, because I still have shadow work journal prompts, We're going to get to those in just a moment. Last one is presence and groundedness, stability, reliability, showing up fully in the moment instead of drifting off into distraction or avoidance. As a side note, in a relationship sense, it can be extremely healthy when a couple recognizes, hey, you're better with this trait and I'm better with this trait. I will yield to you in most cases when it comes to these matters and vice versa, right? So here's the thing, right? When it comes to the expulsion and disintegration of masculine and feminine in this culture, without the masculine and feminine, there's a lack of values, a lack of strong values. All traits and values are seen as evil and bad or offensive. The feminine traits are demonized, and then the feminine is encouraged to replace the masculine and exemplify inherently masculine traits as though they can do them just as well or better. I've been working with boys and girls, adolescent boys and girls, for nearly 25 years, and I can say that they are just wired different. There's a common narrative out there that there are no psychological differences between boys and girls. That is flagrantly false. People who say that have no idea what they're talking about. Working with adolescent boys is very different from working with adolescent girls. Very different. So, how does this apply to you, right? Us as individuals might feel afraid because we've been kind of conditioned these days to be afraid to exemplify either masculine or feminine traits. I don't care if you identify as masculine or feminine. I'm betting that when you have tried to exemplify certain traits, that you have found facing some pretty heavy, nasty criticism at times. I truly believe the world would be much more orderly and would make more sense if we were exemplifying the masculine or feminine traits accordingly. If you find yourself trying to exemplify a certain set of traits because you tell yourself, I am masculine or I am feminine, and you're miserable and your life is in chaos and you're really struggling, you may want to look at the other side of the spectrum. Your body, your soul, your nervous system, your everything will tell you when you're off base, when something's wrong. Okay, so listen to it. So this is going a bit long, longer than I wanted it to. Let's do the shadow work journal prompts and tie this up. Let me provide a little bit of a disclaimer first. I'm a therapist. I'm not your therapist. Shadow work can be difficult and intense for some people, especially those with trauma. Use your own discretion. And if you need additional help, feel free to seek a therapist to further explore some of these issues. As usual, I encourage people to do their shadow work journal prompts in writing. You're going to get a lot more out of them. So keep a separate journal. Okay, shadow work journal prompt number 1. What are my core beliefs about masculine versus feminine traits? Number 2, where did those beliefs originate? Where did they come from? How did I adopt that certain set of beliefs? Number 3, do I have negative perspectives on either masculine or feminine traits or both? Number 4, are those beliefs or attitudes accurate? Or are they biased? Do they reflect a certain negative perspective or bias? Number 5, what fears do I experience around showing or demonstrating either masculine or feminine traits or certain masculine and feminine traits? Number 6, have I chased certain traits, masculine or feminine? Have I made them my ideal? And number 7, how has that gone for me so far? In other words, is it working? This is my effectiveness check. This is a masculine thing right here. This is my effectiveness check. What is my desired outcome? That's number 1. Number 2, what is my method for creating my desired outcome? And number 3, is it working? Here's what I'm getting at. You may have had someone tell you, if you're a boy, that masculinity is toxic and evil and bad. And so you've tried to exemplify feminine traits, but the more you do so, you feel like you are in a state of self-betrayal. and that you're harming yourself and you're out of your own integrity. Okay, so you want to examine where those beliefs came from and whether or not they're serving you and helping you, or maybe they are working against you. Okay, that's going to do it for this episode. Oh, thank you for listening. Appreciate you being here. Go check out my website, saltcitycounseling.com. Starting a new Substack. Stay tuned for that. Follow me on X. That will be in the description. Don't forget to tell friends. Help me grow my audience. Thank you for being here. We will see you next time. Go deal with your demons. And you must do hard things. That was it. You must do hard things.